At the turn of the 20th century, the United States stood at a crossroads unlike any it had faced before. The republic born of agrarian ideals and frontier independence was transforming into an industrial colossus whose cities pulsed with machinery, whose markets spanned oceans, and whose social fabric strained beneath the weight of unprecedented change. Modern America did not arrive suddenly. It emerged slowly, forged through steel, migration, financial speculation, labor conflict, war, and reform, shaped as much by towering skyscrapers as by the crowded tenements in their shadows. To understand the modern American economy and society is to trace the uneasy marriage between progress and inequality, innovation and exploitation, ambition and anxiety. By 1900, the nation's population had nearly quadrupled since the Civil War. Railroads stitched together a continent, carrying coal, grain, oil, and people at speeds unimaginable a generation earlier. Cities such as New York, Chicago, Pittsburgh, and Detroit grew upward and outward, their skylines becoming physical declarations of industrial power. Steel-framed skyscrapers rose as monuments to a new era, symbols of corporate ambition and technological mastery. Architecture itself became an economic language. The Woolworth Building, completed in 1913, was celebrated as a cathedral of commerce, its Gothic form sanctifying capitalism, transforming financial success into something that resembled moral destiny. Behind these facades, the American economy was being reorganized by forces that few fully understood. Giant corporations replaced small enterprises, trusts consolidated entire industries, and financial markets in New York, quietly, began to dictate the rhythms of national life. Men such as John D. Rockefeller, Andrew Carnegie, J.P. Morgan, and Cornelius Vanderbilt amassed fortunes on a scale that rivaled European monarchies. Their influence reached far beyond factories and rail yards, shaping politics, education, philanthropy, and even cultural values. Yet this accumulation of wealth was mirrored by mass poverty. Immigrant laborers crowded into dangerous factories and airless apartments, their lives measured in 12-hour shifts and weekly wages that barely sustained survival. The contradiction at the heart of modern America was already visible. Economic growth promised abundance, but delivered insecurity. Innovation promised freedom, but often created dependence. As industrial production expanded, the old rhythms of rural life gave way to the discipline of the clock and the whistle. Time itself became an instrument of control. The factory system demanded punctuality, uniformity, obedience. Workers no longer followed the seasons. They followed schedules designed to maximize output and minimize cost. Immigration transformed this system from the inside. Between 1880 and 1920, more than 20 million immigrants arrived in the United States, most from Southern and Eastern Europe. Italians, Jews, Poles, Greeks, and Slavs crowded into ethnic neighborhoods near docks, rail yards, and mills. Their labor fueled the nation's ascent, but their presence unsettled long-standing assumptions about American identity. Nativist movements flourished, claiming that modern America was being diluted by foreign blood and foreign customs. Yet without these newcomers, the modern economy could not function. The city became the central theater of this transformation. Urban life concentrated both opportunity and danger in unprecedented density. Tenement buildings rose rapidly, often constructed cheaply and without regard for sanitation or safety. In New York's Lower East Side, families lived in apartments with no windows, no plumbing, and little ventilation. Disease spread easily. Fire became a constant threat. The infamous Triangle Shirtwaist Factory fire of 1911, which killed 146 garment workers, mostly young immigrant women, exposed the brutal consequences of unregulated industry. Locked doors, narrow stairwells, and overcrowded floors turned a workplace into a death trap. Public outrage followed, forcing new labor laws and building codes that would slowly redefine the relationship between government, business, and human life. This moment marked an important shift. The modern American state began cautiously to intervene in the economy. Progressive reformers argued that unchecked capitalism endangered democracy itself. Figures such as Theodore Roosevelt, Woodrow Wilson, and Jane Addams insisted that industrial power must be restrained by law and guided by moral responsibility. Antitrust legislation targeted monopolies. Food and drug regulations attempted to protect consumers from dangerous products. Settlement houses provided education and health care to immigrant communities. These reforms did not dismantle capitalism, but they reshaped it, embedding government into the structure of the modern economy. World War I accelerated these changes dramatically. When the United States entered the conflict in 1917, the federal government assumed unprecedented control over industry, transportation, and labor. Factories were reorganized for mass production of weapons and supplies. Women entered industrial jobs in large numbers. African Americans migrated north in what became known as the Great Migration, seeking industrial employment and escape from Southern segregation. The war demonstrated that the modern economy could be centrally coordinated on a massive scale, revealing both its power and its fragility. The 1920s arrived as a decade of apparent triumph. American factories dominated global markets. Consumer goods flooded stores, automobiles, radios, refrigerators, vacuum cleaners. Advertising created new desires and identities, teaching Americans to measure happiness through ownership. The skyline itself reflected this optimism. Art Deco towers rose across Manhattan, sleek and vertical, celebrating speed, electricity, and modern design. The Chrysler Building and Empire State Building transformed ambition into steel and glass, their spires competing for symbolic supremacy over the modern world. Beneath the glamour, however, structural weaknesses accumulated. Wages lagged behind productivity. Farmers sank into debt as prices collapsed. Financial speculation replaced investment as the engine of wealth. The stock market became a national obsession, promising effortless prosperity to anyone willing to gamble. Credit expanded recklessly, masking instability with illusion. When the crash came in October 1929, it exposed the fragility of the entire system. The Great Depression shattered the myth of automatic progress. Banks failed by the thousands. Factories closed. Unemployment soared to nearly 25%. Bread lines stretched through city streets that only months earlier had celebrated endless growth. Families lost homes, savings, and dignity. Architecture once again revealed the nation's condition. Abandoned office towers stood half empty. New construction halted. Shanty towns, bitterly nicknamed Hoovervilles, rose on the edges of cities, built from scrap wood and discarded metal. Out of this catastrophe emerged a redefinition of modern America. Under President Franklin D. Roosevelt, the federal government launched the New Deal, a vast program of economic stabilization and social reform. Public works projects rebuilt infrastructure on an unprecedented scale. Dams, such as Hoover and Grand Coulee, transformed rivers into engines of electricity and irrigation, reshaping landscapes and regional economies. Social Security established a national safety net. Labor unions gained legal recognition, altering the balance of power between workers and corporations. The New Deal did not end the Depression, but it permanently changed the relationship between the American people and their government. The modern economy would no longer operate without public oversight. Citizenship now implied social protection. Architecture once again became symbolic. Post offices, courthouses, and schools, built under New Deal programs, reflected democratic ideals, blending classical design with functional purpose, asserting that public institutions belong to everyone. World War II completed the transformation. Wartime production revived industry and eliminated mass unemployment. The United States emerged as the dominant economic power of the post-war world. Suburban housing developments spread across former farmland, made possible by government-backed mortgages and highway construction. The automobile reshaped geography. Shopping centers replaced downtown markets. Television entered living rooms, creating a shared national culture. Yet prosperity remained uneven. Racial segregation, gender inequality, and economic exclusion persisted beneath the surface of abundance. The civil rights movement challenged the moral contradictions of modern America, demanding that political democracy be matched by social and economic justice. Labor struggles continued. Urban decline accompanied suburban growth. The modern American economy expanded, but so did its internal tensions. By the late 20th century, new forces again reshaped society. Deindustrialization hollowed out manufacturing cities. Globalization transferred production overseas. Finance replaced industry as the central engine of wealth. Digital technology reorganized labor, communication, and identity. Skyscrapers now housed algorithms instead of assembly lines. Markets moved faster than regulation. Inequality widened once more. Modern America, in its economy and its society, remains a nation in motion, perpetually unfinished. Its buildings tell stories of ambition and collapse. Its institutions bear the scars of crisis and reform. Its people inherit both extraordinary opportunity and unresolved inequality. The story is not one of linear progress, but of repeated reinvention. Each generation